and welcome, and what a wonderful panel I have with me here today. Shobna Kamineni, Shamika Ravi, Aditi Mittal and Pinky Reddy. Strong voices who are today sharing with us what they would like to see in terms of policies for women from these elections. Women have emerged as a much stronger voice today, and this is all about really finding what is still a priority for them and what they'd like to see from the government. It's amazing that both parties are increasingly dedicating space for women in their manifestos, so it's a clear acknowledgement that this is an important voice that needs to be heard. And of course, they've both made a case for reservations as well this time around in the Lok Sabha. But, you know, that's something we've been hearing for years. And I think I want to kickstart by really just asking why it's so important to have women leaders in Parliament representing us. Shamika, let me come to you first on this. Talk to us about why it's become more important now, even more so than before.
Because it is a dynamic economy and we do want a representative democracy. Yeah. We do have more and more women voters coming out and voting. More than historical, ever in the last several decades. And yet, in terms of the glass ceiling, the costs of entry into public life, particularly political life, is stacked against women. We know that 3/4 of women contestants actually contest as independents without any political party backing, which is a very large number. And I think it's important, therefore, for political parties to lower such costs of entry, either within their own parties, through active policies of promotion, or within the parliament, and maybe hopefully subsequently in the assemblies as well.
Absolutely. Shobna, we've also had the manifestos promising a whole host of appointments in central government jobs, and that's obviously addressing a different strata of society as well. But whether it be as representatives in Parliament, whether it be in terms of opportunities to work with the system, again, do you see implementation and execution this time around?
I think we can always be hopeful, but the last time around, in 2014, of course, lots was promised, and actually some nice ground level things were promised, like you move from firewood into gas connections, and some of these that could really help women optimize time, help them in terms of their health, many health benefits, the maternity law, all these I think have actually resulted. So there has been some execution. Both manifestos now are promising more, and I like what Shamika said. I really believe, she said the cost of entry for to get candidates out there, it is expensive, and it's becoming more expensive. There should be something that if they're going to give this 33% reservation and it just becomes too expensive again, it'll be a futile effort. So there should be something in place for that. And then of course it boils down to education. Are we getting more, while you're concentrating and focusing that there's so many women votes coming out there, but what are we doing in terms of, making the level playing fields in terms of education and allowing women to come up? So I think that this is a work in progress. We have to keep persevering on it. We have to keep pushing, and where necessary, it does need a special injection of funds and support.
Absolutely, and I want to come back to that in a moment. But Aditi, let me bring you in here, because talking about maternity laws, and we've had this government really, blow the trumpet in terms of how they feel they have been very proactive in terms of pro-women policies. But there was also a very disturbing article that you and I were looking at last week with regards to rural women and some of the issues that they're facing on ground and conditions that they work in, and how these haven't been addressed. What more would you like to see when it comes to some of these fundamental policies?
I think actually in terms of even the 2015 laws, that the surrogacy laws, were extremely unforgiving to the surrogates as well as the women who were providing the surrogate services. And so, I mean, in the coming year, I think, in fact, we do, of course, need more political representation, but I think it is a question of the discourse around women in public life changing. We cannot, I mean, you know, every young girl hears it when, you know, a member of the parliament is called a surpankha or is called a nachne wali. There are young girls out there who are listening to this and realizing the cost of entry into public life, realizing that they will have to sell out or be a double agent of patriarchy, as it were, if they needed to, you know, get into political life. And so, in my opinion, I think it's about just raising the level of discourse that we are having about just the way we talk about women, whether it's in our news, whether it's in, you know, our politicians talking to each other. It just requires a serious bump up.
Okay, in fact, let me also, you know, bring Pinky into this and get her views on why it's so important, Pinky, then to actually have more women representatives, because there are so many issues that need to be tackled in order to change the narrative altogether. Would you like to see more of a representation, and in what areas? What are some of the policies you think need to be addressed?
To start off with, I'm not a politician. I have no intentions to be in politics. But all I can say is I was heading FICCI Ladies organization, so I was dealing with a lot of women-oriented issues. And if you're saying that, what do you think? I think what the political parties, whoever wins and whoever comes into power, if they want more work to be done properly, they should get more women and give them good positions. And I think they understand what issues women are going through too. I don't think the men can handle and help women. I think it's very important to give women some good positions so that they work towards and help get better positions for the women. To add to this, I think like BJP has a lot of women. I think Prime Minister really supports a lot of women, that I must say. It really has, and I have a lot of friends in, like, you know, Poonam and Smriti, and all of them are very good friends, and they're doing great job, fantastic. I've seen the way they've been working. Sure. I think in a lot of regional parties, there are less women. That's what I feel.
Shamika, let me come back to you. You know, when we're talking about making things a lot more amenable for women at work, whether it be in corporates or in rural India, there are a lot of things that, again, have been put on the manifesto, detailed on the manifesto, whether it be women's hostels, transport facilities, you know, a closer look at safety issues. And I don't want to sound pessimistic here, but again, I hope this isn't left on a list, on a manifesto. You know, how easily implementable do you feel some of these things are? I mean, setting up working women's hostels and better transport facilities shouldn't have to be all that difficult.
Well, let me tell you that things have actually improved to a large extent in the last 15 years. If you start with the fact that many political parties, first of all, electoral democracy and electoral competition is very good for voters in general. Okay, so this new phase of electoral politics we are seeing in terms of representing women's interests, absolutely more. We want more of this and more power to the political parties which are now catering to the women's needs. So we should be happy with that. The important thing to note, though, is that women have started to vote distinctly, which means we have examples in the past of state elections, constituencies where women have voted very differently from the men. And I think the politicians actually do have their ears on the ground. Okay? Because we have had not just manifestos, but active policies after certain governments have come into power, catering to that female vote base. So whether it was, you know, a very large number of policies under Nitish, under the JDU in 2005, or more recently, you know, this whole toilet phenomenon, the whole LPG, they're all, you know, they are larger infrastructure issues, but essentially catering to the needs and preferences of the women citizens of the country. So I think I would be, in fact, I wouldn't be cynical about it at all. I would think that electoral democracy is the best thing in a democratic setup. And I think the best hope for women citizens moving forward.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. So let's talk about, you know, some of the examples we've seen of women till now that have actually been in some of these leadership positions. The reason I ask is because, you know, Congress has also gone to town talking about how they have been the one with a female prime minister and so on. from the members that we have already seen in Parliament, you know, have we actually seen anything concrete come out of them? Because the reason I ask is just to show examples of how and where, if we do see women in leadership positions, we might see more policy action on ground.
Are you asking this to me?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, I think we need a little bit of correction in, you know, the way we view women leaders. You know, mass leaders have to win elections. And the average voter in most constituencies of India remain male voters, a young male Indian, right? So if you see that, you know, the large, whether we have had female prime ministers or founders of many parties, they have not really represented women's preferences. I mean, we have to be honest about it. And that's because that's an outcome of the electoral system we have. And tomorrow, if we are to have a women's reservation, remember that, you know, perhaps 4 or 5 women will now have to compete to win these seats. And if the average voter in those constituencies remain young men, then they are going to cater to the needs of their average voters. So I don't think in the past, you know, symbolic things like having female prime ministers, I think it makes a difference as far as, you know, an aptitude and an acceptance of women leaders are concerned, but it really doesn't do radically very much else, right? But I think this is where we have to hold political parties to their own constitutions. Each political party in India actually has a fairly progressive constitution. And if you actually look at the numbers, that the number of leaders, women leaders they have, most of them, including Congress and all, they, you know, the women are relegated to Mahila Morcha. You know, how many Congress Working Committee members are women? How many AICC members are women? Politburo, how many women do you have in the Politburo of the Communist Party? So we have to be honest that while we have progressive vision, you know, some of these parties, they haven't really done very much within their parties to promote women leaders.
Aditi, let me get your thoughts in here, and you know, in terms of women in leadership positions, what we've seen, what you'd like to see, what's your opinion?
Gee, so far, I think it has been mostly token. I think it has been mostly token, and it has been mostly to sort of shine a light for, oh, now we have a woman here. Though, I mean, if you see most of our, even our, you know, a lot of the meetings that you see, the pictures that come out, it's all manels, it's all male panels, and it's all a bunch of men sitting around a table making the decisions. And we have Jaya Bachchan, who occasionally will stand up and say something, you know, that will sort of shake the foundations of the day. But apart from that, there aren't too many women leaders who are not, I mean, and unfortunately are not playing the same dirty games as the men in order to survive in the game. And you cannot even resent them for that. It would, yes, help to have more women on a local level, and I understand that this year, you know, in fact, Congress for its claims of having a female, the first female prime minister, gave out, I think, only 15% tickets this year for the Lok Sabha elections, and so the question is now, how much and who do these women represent? And will political parties be putting, you know, their money and their heft behind these women so that they can sort of rise to leadership positions?
Pinky, let me bring you in here and get a sense from you on whether or not you feel there's enough access to some of those opportunities.
Yeah. Women surely have a voice. It's not like earlier. If somebody is really like, and I think there's a lot of unity in women also. You know, and then people say that, you know, we are the crab culture of pulling people down in India. But I think I can see a lot of women working together also. It's very important. I think women need to be there while they're making policies. That's why I think we need more women in the parliament. You know, they understand issues what women are going through. And I think, as I always said, women really put in their heart and soul when they get into anything. And I've seen the way people work. I've seen this whole year how women work from different levels of women in different cities. I've traveled all over the country, all the chapters, and it's whether small city, big city, they're so enthusiastic. And but I must credit, there are a lot of men who support all these women. So this is still a long way, but there are some people already there.
So a couple of differing views coming in here, and Shobna, let me come to you perhaps for a balanced perspective, or you might have a specific leaning. Shamika is of course sounding a little bit more optimistic, and Aditi is still feeling that the narrative is skewed. What do you make of it?
I'm an optimist, but draw a parallel from what's happening in corporate India. They made it mandatory to have female directors, and the real issue here is that there aren't enough competent female directors that are stepping up, that are available for these boards. We still have a gap, and so we're working on it. But and that's the exact point with this 33%, if it really comes to play, is that you're not going to have that many competent women who can fill those positions, and God forbid, we do not want proxies. And we see this in some of the panchayats, which are reserved for women, that you just have proxies with of wives or daughters-in-law, and that's not healthy. So we do have to create, when you make a statement that you want this reservation or you want women empowerment, there's so many things that need to come below it, and now for real progress, we have to start looking below the line and seeing what is it that we're creating in terms of a foundation, in terms of a 360 environment to make that purpose successful. So I'd love to see the 33%, but can we do it? I have my doubts. I'd love to see more women in leadership positions. But tell me, even around the world, Hillary Clinton was the closest that we got in the recent past to having a woman leader. But she was the wife of someone. Angela Merkel, of course, came up on her own. But look at India. Do you really think, like Shamika said, do we really think that we can find someone who is, from the most humble roots? Would they be able to rise to become the Prime Minister of India? You need an enabling environment, and that's my point here.
So where does it begin, Shobna, just to take it forward? Currently, let's say, in the current setup, in the current corporate sphere, for example, just in terms of women, even at the mid-level, are there enough policies that are supportive, that are encouraging them to stay on in the workforce? What more could be done, you feel, in a more regulated manner to ensure that women stay on in the workforce and are given more opportunities?
Education is one, sure. And I love to bring out Arundhati's story when she spoke about why there's so many women in financial services, because it was the exam was anonymized. So there was no, it was a computer which was scoring and doing this, and then the women came on top. If you look at the medical field, it's lovely to see that in the medical profession now, it's not just nurses, but we have almost an equal ratio of doctors that are male and female. So these are the things, when this environment is moving up, then with a rising tide, all boats will rise. And I think that's what I meant by an enabling mechanism, that it will be another generation of leaders. It'll be all of us, the way that we work with our children to make sure that the boys understand that they're, how they work with their sisters, with their wives, in family companies, when they're given an equal vote and role. All this is, societal change, and it's coming in India.
Shamika, just taking that point ahead, as Shobna was discussing or alluding to as well, do you feel that perhaps today what has become more important as a narrative for women, or to capture the female voter or the woman voter, has also changed? Is it still, in terms of priority, is it now education versus safety? Is it education and safety as a close second, or interchangeable? What would you say the priorities are today for a voter?
Women are voting for many things. And again, like I said, political parties are responding. In fact, that is why health has become such a political topic, as it ought to have perhaps 20 years back. But health today is political because one does realize that in terms of public goods, health, education, infrastructure, they're all very high priority. And yet, in the last many decades, we have, sort of put health and education, particularly on the back burner, very much leaving households to cope on their own. So, and a lot of that health, by the way, has to do with women's health. In fact, the reason maternal mortality is a priority, and India is a signatory to that as far as the Sustainable Development Goals are concerned, is on account of the fact that women's health is a priority for this government, and as it ought to be for the next government.
That's in fact what Aditi and I were discussing earlier, that despite that focus on, making sure there are clean sanitary napkins, toilets available and so on and so forth, some of these women in rural areas were going without their womb, were having surgical procedures to remove their womb because there were no accessible toilets. So you hear all these conflicting reports, but I think Aditi was also very disturbed just reading that particular report. Aditi, for you, health, of course, and we discussed that earlier, maternal health is a big issue, a big flag. What else is it, according to you, in terms of what women are looking for as a voice of a woman in India from these elections? What would be a priority?
As you said, and I think it bears repeating for the rest of eternity, maternal health is top priority. And the second one, I think right now, especially for the fact that by 2020, I mean, the great demographic dividend will have to be either reaped or we're going to have a huge problem on our hands. I think the second problem is safety and jobs. And I'm going to put both together because it sort of ensures the safer you are, the more able you are to go out and work and fill up those reservation quotas that, organizations want you to. And so safety and jobs are the two after maternal health that I think matter the most. Or that I, at least as a voter, am very, very keen on seeing what parties have to say about it.
And I think safety continues to be a recurring priority, as it should be. In fact, Pinky, let me get closing comments from you as well on what you're watching out for.
I think basically education, safety, all that is important. Everything is so complementary for a woman to be sustaining for herself. She needs to empower herself. If there's no education, you're not going to get a job. If you're not going to get a job, you're not going to take care of yourself. And safety, actually, I've just, my initiative when I was in FICCI, I handed over yesterday, we actually launched an app with Airtel. It's called My World, and it's a safety app. It's an SOS app. You can have 5 people on your app. It's basically your family, and even the police can be on the app. And it's going to be in pan-India, and it's going to have like some 15 languages. And I'm going to just add in all my immediate family or friends. So if I'm in a problem, I press an SOS and it goes in alert mode to all 5 people immediately. And that way, and it is a GPS connection. So that way they can trace you where you are. And the minute you press that SOS, your phone goes into a silent mode.
All right, so taking action there into your own hands and making sure safety is a priority for all of us. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Shobna, Shamika, Aditi, Pinky, it was great to get all of your perspectives and different views, and to know really what women are watching out for when it comes to these elections. One thing is clear, they're going to be keenly seeing whether or not some of these policies that have been promised in either manifesto are implemented and taken forward. And here's hoping to see many more women leaders as well in the Indian Parliament. Thanks so much for watching.